Welcome again, everyone, to join us on this sixth episode of Shift. Um, Thank you for being with us. Give me a one on the chat box if this is your first time joining a shift. Give me a two if this is your second, third, or fourth time. You have been with us before, please put a two. If you have been with us for the first time, please press one. Welcome, Ralph. Yes, it's good to see guests coming on. Welcome, Wendy. Welcome, Steph. Thank you very much for coming on board today. Now, the goal of Shift, just give everyone a good perspective for those who just joined us, was something that we kind of create a platform to have conversation and discussion about how do we then move our lives, especially in the area of work or business, in this new normal that we are in. Someone was telling me right now we are in a recovery mode. We were at a crisis. Now we are going into a recovery, and hopefully we will come into a new normal. So, but in that journey of that past 7, 8, 9 weeks that we are in, we thought that Shift was a good platform for us to engage and create value for the community, so that we all are not alone going through this, and we have various people in various roles of business or the corporate world to kind of give us a perspective. But today we are taking a very different perspective. We wanted to talk a little bit about how is this pandemic crisis is kind of helping us to understand mental health, and how do we then build resilience to go through this recovery journey and then move on to this new normal that we are about to face and about to come into a path with. So with me today, I'm very privileged and honored. We have two of licensed counselor from Lembaga Counselor Malaysia. We have two of them, both serving this community service called oh shoot, I came on forgetting the name. Arene Counseling Services. I am very bad at pronouncing foreign words, so it's a Greek word I was told. So we're going to talk a little bit about, number one, we're going to go and talk a little bit about mental health. But before we do that, I just want to set some expectations for all the audience here today. We are going to go through the whole session and potentially end around 6:10 to 6:15. Normally we end at 6 p.m., but today we have decided to go on a little bit longer and end at about 6:10 to 6:15. So just that you all be able to manage your expectations of time that we are going to be spending here this afternoon. So I thought we break the conversation into two sections. Number one, what really is mental health and how is that affecting us in this COVID-19 pandemic? And the other part of it will be discussing on what are some of the applicable steps to kind of live with this in this season, and what are some of the strategies that we can kind of live with this in this season. To start us off with, I'm going to invite Wendy. Wendy, are you on the call? Yeah, you
Hi, John.
Hey, Wendy. So Wendy is going to take us away about giving us an overview on a high level what mental health is all about. So Wendy, take us away.
All right, thank you, John. Right, so welcome everybody. Thank you for logging in. So I'm just going to share with you about mental health. Another word for mental health is actually psychology health. The word mental is actually very scary for many people, because when we talk about mental, and everybody only thinks about like, oh, mental is only for crazy people. That's why we talk about that. Now, basically, mental health is really about your thoughts, your emotions, and the behavior towards yourself, others, and the world. Now, when I talk about mental health, one way to look at it is like this. If I see you, the first question I ask is, how are you? And you will answer me by saying, oh, I'm fine. But when you say you're fine, you're referring to your physical health. You are not sick, you are able to eat, so you say, yeah, I'm fine. But if I were to ask you, how is your mind? How is your mental mind health? I think you're going to look at me and say, oh my gosh, what's wrong with her? Why is she asking me this? Do I look weird? Do I look funny? Do I look like I'm going crazy? So this question of how is your mental health is never asked unless you go see a counselor, and then they'll ask you, how are you feeling today? What are you thinking? And so forth. So in a nutshell, mental health is really about your thinking thoughts. And your thinking thoughts has a direct effect to your emotion. Because let's say if you are thinking about someone who wronged you, immediately you will feel hurt or anger. So that is the emotion part. And when you feel hurt or anger, you behave or you respond or you react in sense that you will perhaps ignore the person, you avoid the person, or you probably speak evil or speak badly of the person. So mental health is really about your thinking thoughts and how it influences your emotion, hence then is then exhibited or demonstrated via your behavior. How vulnerable is your mental health or how strong your mental health is affect your thinking, your feeling and your doing in daily life stresses and also challenges. Going back to me asking you like how are you today, which is the physical health, and means that this physically we can be injured, and when you're injured it's easy to get it fixed. If you have a bruise, you rub some ointment to get it done. If you have a cut, you put a band-aid over it. But what about psychological health? Injury, sorry. Let's see if you are and psychology injury is your emotional injury. Do you know that all of us go through psychology injury? Common psychological injuries include failure, rejection, guilt, loneliness, rumination, loss and trauma, and bouts of low self-esteem. So basically, when you have psychological injuries, and if you don't take care of it, it is going to grow and it's going to manifest in you, and you will feel as if you are losing control. So, if I were to ask you how is your mental health today, you will ask me back the same question. How do I know what is my mental health? Basically, your mental health, the answer to your question will be aware of your emotions. You see, when we were growing up in our Asian culture, we are always told not to express our emotion. Expressing emotion is a form of weaknesses in our Asian culture. So growing up now, if I were to ask you, how do you feel today? You tell me, I'm okay. But okay is not an expression of emotion. And okay is just okay. It doesn't say anything about your emotion. So mental health is about being aware of how you feel. Feeling meaning, are you happy? Are you feeling sad? Are you feeling fearful? Are you hurt? Are you angry? That is called emotion. And when you have that emotion, the next thing you can do is basically about being mindful. What is that thinking thoughts behind that emotion? If I say I'm feeling hurt, what is that emotion? What is that thinking thoughts that is causing that hurt? Perhaps I'm hurt. Okay, like for example, in this COVID-19 pandemic, I'm feeling hurt because sometimes I feel that my family is not supporting me at this time. For example, not saying it's me. I feel hurt because I'm doing everything on my own and no one is supporting me. I'm feeling very alone. I'm feeling lonely, which I said just now is a psychological injury. And basically, it also comes to a point that I will then decide what is my choice. Do I react or I respond to the situation? So your mental health, the question to your mental health is this. How do I know my mental health state? 1. Be aware of your emotions. And be mindful of what is that thought behind the emotions. What's the driving force behind that emotion? And understand that you have a choice to react or respond to the situation. Okay, so now, emotion, like I said just now earlier, a lot of times we try to avoid, suppress, or disregard our emotion. But do you know that our emotion is our first signal to our mental state? So anytime your heart is feeling, or you're feeling restless, or you're feeling uncomfortable, that is a good time for you to stop for a while and start asking yourself, why am I feeling this way? Now, a lot of times we like to think that mental health is really for those who are really mentally ill, like people who are struggling with schizo, people with substance abuse, people with bipolar disorder. But mental health can happen to any one of us. Do you know that I have mental health? You have mental health. My mental health and your mental health is not constant. It's a yo-yo. Okay, for example, 12 hours before this talk, I was actually feeling, my mental health was actually very vulnerable. I was feeling anxious, I was feeling nervous, I was feeling fearful. But because I'm a counselor, I was aware to capture these emotions, and I had a mindfulness of my thought. What was driving this emotion? So anxiety basically, I realized that my anxiety was because I was afraid that I come across as someone who doesn't know what I'm talking about. My fear was that I will go all over places and people cannot catch me what I was trying to say. My worry was that I will stumble over my words and then people will be like going, what is she talking? She's not really good at what she's doing. So all these are called the negative thoughts. And my negative thoughts are fueling my emotions, and I was feeling on my body sensation. My fingers were cold, I have got cold feet. These are called this is when my mental health is actually very vulnerable. My point is this: if we are not careful with how our mind, the way we think, it can actually affect the way we think, the way we feel, and the way we respond to a situation. I just want to say this also. When I say that being aware of your emotion, it will be good if we can start to be more sensitive to the feelings that we have: sadness, frustration, anger, hurt. Okay, and then mindfulness. Mindfulness. I read this somewhere which I thought was very interesting. People who struggle with regret, with shame, with self-blame, with hurt are mostly stuck in the past. And people who struggle with worry, with fear and anxiety are people who are always looking towards the future, that they have lost themselves, that they are not even present in where they are, which is here and now. So basically, mental health is really about your thinking thoughts. I couldn't emphasize that enough. Your thinking thoughts. Our mind has a way of its own to trick us into believing things that sometimes is not true. And the way your mind thinks has a way of affecting your emotions. And because you feel it and it's obvious in your bodily sensation, you will then respond or react in certain ways following what your heart feels. Yeah. So in this COVID-19, I think many of us feels isolated. We are cut off from our family members, especially like for me, I feel cut off from my parents. I feel lonely. And it's affecting me a little bit because I'm missing my parents in that sense. Then I begin to have this sense of a little bit of self-guilt because I don't spend enough time with them. That's how I feel. And I self-blame myself, because I'm not really a good daughter because I didn't spend enough time. I don't call them often as I should. And then here comes the pandemic and I can't even go home to see them. So this one, if I allow it to ruminate and allow it to overtake my mindset, I will become even more sad. I will probably feel that I'm not good enough. I probably felt that I'm a terrible person. So mental health is really about watching and taking note of your thinking thoughts and taking note of your emotions, and know that you have the power to choose to react or to respond to the given situation. Reacting is a negative way of you reacting. Reacting basically is a negative way of doing things. Responding is in a more positive manner. Yeah.
Wow.
John.
Yeah, okay. Thank you for sharing that. Well, for some of the audience here, just want to ask a few questions just to clarify some stuff. So basically, handling stress is a form of mental health. And when you talk about responding and reacting, can you give an example of how do we respond on stress and how do we react on stress? What's an example? I'm going to work right now. I'm very stressful. Maybe I'm having a conversation with my boss this morning and she just told me that we have to take a cut of a salary right now. So there's a lot of stress because I'm thinking my bills, I'm thinking of the things that I cannot do or I can do. So how do you then, how do we respond or react? What would that be like for us when you're going through stress?
Okay. So, can I give you another scenario which we all can relate to? For example, do you remember about the case of the road rage on April 19? About this motorist that actually banged the other motorist out of anger.
Yep. Yes.
Do you remember? I think many of us recall that case in the Sungai Besito.
Yes, correct.
Okay, so basically is this. So all of us, for example, we were all in the stage whereby, okay, so reacting is like this. When the two guys were arguing and fighting, okay, the first stop for the motorist guy, for two of them were arguing. One guy perhaps believes that, okay, so you are overtaking me, so you do not respect me and you're being very unfair. Okay, you came and you took over my parking space. No, my at the toll, right?
Yep.
Okay, so stress is this part. When you feel unfair, when you feel that you're not being treated fairly or you feel disrespected, then you get angry. Okay, you probably the motorist also is rushing for something of his own business. So that added stress to him, and that guy who took over his slot is basically the trigger to his emotions, you know. And reacting is when the guy came out with a baseball bat,
Yep.
wanting to hit the guy. That is called reacting. You react based on anger. You react based on your emotion.
Yep.
Okay? Responding is basically you take a step back and you think for the person. Why is that person behaving this way? Perhaps he or she is having a bad day himself. Probably he or she is rushing to the hospital because someone is sick. You know, that's called responding. And you give grace, you give compassion to the person. Going back to your question, for example, if your boss says, okay, I'm going to give you a pay cut, right? If you want to react, you can be very angry and you can say, oh, I'm not going to give my way of reacting, I'm not going to work so hard for this company. This company is not worth it. Yeah? So why should I work so hard? I'm just going to give what is due to me. Responding is like saying, okay, this pay cut. Maybe in a way it is good. Maybe this is what everybody needs. If I give a little bit, then the company can sustain longer. Then I will have my job. So basically, this is what you call reacting and responding. Yeah, I don't know if answering the question.
That's a very good. I just want to thank you for clarifying that. So I thought that was a very good example to kind of start the conversation with everyone here to think through of some of the stress that we are going through and what are the things that we can react and respond towards those stress that we might be going through during COVID-19 right now. Thank you for sharing that, Wendy. Thank you for sharing that. I'm going to quickly move on to Elaine. Elaine, are you here?
Yep. Hi, John.
Hi. Elaine is also one of the counselors in IRENE Counseling Service, and she's also licensed with the Lembaga Counsellor Malaysia. Maybe Elaine, you want to bring us through some application of how we then work through the current situation we are in terms of our mental health. Go ahead.
Yep. Okay, thanks Wendy for giving us a nice explanation of mental health. So right now, as we have known roughly of the mental health, how our thinking processes, our feelings, and our behaviors are kind of interconnected. Let's focus now into building resiliency. So in this time of unprecedented times, knowing that there are uncertainties ahead of us. So we talk about being resilient. What does it mean to us? So resilient is something like, just imagine like you're pulling rubber bands, like a bunch of rubber bands. So you pull it, and how does it look like? It will be stretched. Yeah. So you stretch, and then you let go. It goes back to the same form. So basically, resiliency is how we being stretched, and then when we are not in a tension time, we go back to the same form. Yeah. So this is the same thing as how we are when we approach this season. Many of us have perhaps gone back to work, and there are a lot of changes. There's a new one that we're all talking about. Yeah. So I came out together with some of the research and reading, and then realize that the word care is really important at this moment. Yeah, so there is this care framework that we came about, and hopefully we'll be able to take on and apply this. Okay, so the first letter is C. Yeah, we need to say that it is connection. Yeah, so as we know that actually connection really matters. Yeah, things like this, like Shift, this platform, it's a way to connect us all, which is a really good platform. The reason why, because research shows that when there's strong ties with family, friends, and even community, it provides us with sense of happiness, of security, and support, and will give us a sense of purpose. If you imagine that you have been with this shift for 6 times now, it gives you a sense of purpose. It leads us to somewhere. Yeah. So being connected to others is really important for our mental health, and also not only mental health, it's also physical well-being. Yeah, because we establish, we also sustain relationship which involve a lot of effort and initiative. Sometimes it could be stressful to some extent, yeah, because we're talking about social distancing right now. Now, when we go back to work, everyone is in some sort of cubicle, and we won't be able to communicate and socialize as how we were, right? So it can be stressful to some extent. Some of us may be introvert, some of us may be extrovert when it comes about our personality traits. So with socializing, yeah, many may end up insecure or perhaps very anxious due to unsatisfying relationship. So one of the factor that really cause us to not be able to sustain relationship is unsatisfied relationship. There's conflict, there is misunderstanding. Yeah. So perhaps moving forward right now where we are in this season, let's think about how to take time to improve our relationship with others. Perhaps find opportunity to work on improving our communication skills, yeah, and to enhance our social connectedness. Right now, our social skill is probably over 3 months of MCO. We only communicate through Zoom, we only communicate through WhatsApp, and so on. So perhaps we want to improve our communication skills. That will help us to be more resilient in terms of building and establishing relationship. Yeah. So one of the ways to strengthen connections, which is to reach out to people, whether we are single, whether we are married, whether we are having children. Yeah, we reach out to people. The idea of reaching out is to share your time, is to share our life experiences, and also to find time to listen to them. Through that, gradually, we will be able to build a group of people in our life who cares about each other, and also for us to put ourselves in this network, we're also able to care about other people as well, right? So for connection, as we navigate through the uncertainties in the marketplace, whether it is your business, whether it is a startup business, whether it is a business that you're struggling with, business works as an economy ecosystem. Yeah, bear in mind that it is a system. Yeah, with the future of e-commerce, e-marketing, e-learning, perhaps consider joining in and reaching out to keep ourselves and others, especially for those who are in the older generation and who may not be very technical savvy. Yeah, so we're talking about all this taking to digital platform. Let's look out and look up after each other. Yeah, what we call this is intergeneration working and supporting each other. That's how the hashtag Kita Jaga Kita is. Yeah, all right. So everyone good? So we'll now move on to A, which is attuning to self. Yeah, attuning to self. It's very important. I think Wendy did mention about how we actually find within ourselves, as in like our emotions, to recognize how are we feeling. So attuning to self is really important. Attuning means to adjust and to tune into harmony. Yeah, basically is to listen to my body, my mind, my feelings, and then I'll be able to learn how to cope and to manage the stress and able to work through the emotional shift. For example, certain things that we're struggling with, depression, anxiety, stress, yeah, insecurity, and also right now is a lot of uncertainties. So how am I going to manage my emotions? First of all, recognize that what Wendy say. What are my feelings? These feelings are the signals that allow me, for example, these are things that we're going through. Am I having difficulty in sleeping? Yeah. So when I'm having difficulty in sleeping, what is going on with me? Yeah. When I'm having a very yo-yo eating diet, yeah, what is going on with me? When I am in my work, I'm having lack of motivation and I can't focus. And what is going on with me? Tuning in to myself to recognize what is these emotions, what are these signs telling me. Yeah. For example, just imagine the situation that gripped by fear and anxiety. Give you one example: losing a job, or maybe business that are seemingly struggling right now, or maybe we overwork yet feel unappreciated. Yeah. So looking back in these situations, maybe you want to raise questions. Am I in charge of my emotions, or are my emotions in charge of me? Who is in control? Yeah. And also we can also look at, am I afraid of how people view me? Alright? So this is something that we can think about and hence put into application to tune ourselves into it of how am I doing and what am I feeling. Right. When talking about emotions, there's no good or bad emotions. Emotions are basically neutral. Right? So whether we think that we are feeling depressed or we're anxious, actually these are not bad emotions. Okay. Yeah. So emotions are inbuilt and it is to respond to threat. So in responding to COVID, do I respond with fear? Yeah. If I respond with fear, I will be living in a fear zone. And then how am I going to behave in this situation? For example, hoarding toilet papers. Yeah. Maybe hoarding food. Yeah. Or can I respond with much understanding? So I need to understand COVID. I need to understand the situation. I need to understand how am I feeling. Am I fear? Am I worried? Am I anxious? Okay. So recently, Dr. Don Hisham quoted from Marie Curie. It says that nothing in life is to be feared. It is to be understood. And now is the time to understand more so that we may feel less. So this understanding and applying to attune to self is to understand our emotions. Okay? Alright? So is everyone alright? Yeah. Okay, we will move on. Next is R, which is reframing. Yeah. Reframing meaning to say that put on a new frame. Yeah. So right now, this is our frame. This is how we frame our thoughts, how we frame our emotions. Now we are going to reframe it. It's just how we change your photo frame to a different frame. Yeah. So we have talked about our emotions. We also now talk about our thoughts, which is really important. Like what Wendy say, yeah, it is our thought who often put us in situations that we will think less of ourselves, that we will definitely maybe due to our culture. Yeah, it's often negative, it's often that self-defeating, it's often self-blaming, right? So right now, reframing meaning to say that I need to manage my expectations by adjusting the framework of my thoughts and processes. First of all, identify my negative thoughts. Yeah, which these thoughts are often not true. What are these thoughts about? All right. Sometimes we want our clients to really write down their thoughts, and if they write down their thoughts, they'll be able to see that, oh wow, these are the thoughts that really entrapping me, right? So how do I do that then? When I recognize my negative thoughts, practice self-compassion. Yeah, we are very compassionate to others. We take care of our parents, we take care of our friends, and whoever that we are in contact with. But one thing that really stops us is basically we are not really compassionate to ourselves. It doesn't mean that today if I go for facial, if I go for my manicure, I go for a spa, I need to say that I really care for myself. Yes, it's true, yeah. But compassion with our thoughts is also self-compassion, right? So basically is to be kind to ourselves, right? So one example is to focus on what I can control and what I cannot. What I can control is myself, my thoughts. Yeah, hence how it can affect how I feel. For example, I can't control how the virus spread. Yeah, I can't control losing my job. I can't control being demoted when I go back to work. Yeah, but I can control how I think and what I can do in the midst of retrenchment, in the midst of being demoted, in the midst of business being, in the form of downsizing, and then focus on my strength, what I can do instead of what I can't. Yeah, so it goes back to ourselves as well to recognize that besides my emotions, we also recognize our strength. What am I good at? In this season, some of us we discover that we are innate master chefs. Yeah, so some of us can really, from not being able to cook, and now they really can cook a storm. This is how we respond. And then the thing is, we lost track of our own strengths along the way, and often we just park it them aside. All right. So that's how we actually do reframing. All right. So next, when we do that, we identify what we can control and what we cannot. Next is to break down into achievable steps. Break down our goals into achievable steps. And then we set certain milestones in each step, review it, reflect on the feasibility. Yeah? So if let's say in our workplace, your goal is to reach to a managerial position, but maybe at this time may not be the right time yet. Do you really scrap your goal? I hope not. Yeah, keep your goal and then you break it down. If it's not now in this season, we do not know. Maybe in the next season. Yeah. So if not, what am I going to do now? I break it down and then I set milestone for myself. Maybe I need to pick up certain skills at this moment, right? So that will definitely be feasible for us. So finally, celebrate small successes. It's really important. When we talk about our value and our worth, we often forgo that. And then we kind of go into the whole situation of beating ourselves over it. And because why? We don't recognize our effort. Alright? So celebrate small successes and recognize that these are my effort. Yeah. And lastly, before I end the reframing part, Dr. Mohisham also quoted something which is really timely, which is to manage our fear. We need to engage. Remember, we talked about connection. We need to explain and manage the expectations. We need to understand more on COVID to ally our fear. This is what he quoted just a few days ago. So this is really timely for us to consider that when we attune the emotions to ourselves, when we reframe our thoughts, when we understand a little bit more, that's where we able to manage our thoughts and emotions better. Alright? Okay, that would be for reframing. And then now we go on to the last part. The last part, which is exercise. Yeah. So yes, we know that exercise is really important. Just like physical wellness, our physical wellness, we need to maintain our good diet. We need to have enough sleep. We need to have a good number of hours of exercise to keep us going our physical health. Yeah, it's same good for mental health. So as Wendy has shared, mental health is not mental illness. Yeah, bear in mind it's not mental illness. It's our well-being of our mental. Yeah. So mental health exercise, which includes first of all, we heard about the word mindfulness, which is to be present and to focus on our being rather than our doing. Yeah. So we're so caught up with doing, we're so caught up with our daily struggle, routine, and whatnot. We forgot to take pause and breathe. Yeah, breathing is a very autonomous response. But we forgot that hey, we're actually breathing at this moment. We take it for granted. Yeah. So by doing so, we take pause and focus on our breathing. It actually increases the sense of awareness of sound, yeah, awareness of taste, awareness of touch, our visual, and scent. These are our senses, right? So there's this saying that hey, stop by and then smell the bed of roses. Yeah, so it does really help with that phrase because if we focus on now, here and now, we are able to filter, we are able to absorb, we are able to respond. Okay, so by doing that, certain exercise will definitely help us to relax. Deep breathing relaxation exercise. So during some of our sessions, we actually take through our clients who are really anxious to take this exercise and to practice it at home. Like how we do exercise, we do deep breathing exercise. So basically, for those who are really anxious, you find that you are tend to be more reactive rather than responsive. It's time to take pause, take a deep breath, hold it, and let go. Yeah. Once it's not enough, again, take a deep breath, hold it, and let go. All right. So by doing so, this will keeps us relaxed and helps us to regulate our body rhythm. Our body is actually on a rhythmic pace. Yeah. So because of stresses, the stimuli that comes in that we take on, our pace goes faster and it becomes irregular. Right? When it becomes irregular, we breathless. So that's where the panic attack comes in, the anxiety attacks come in. So when we talk about anxiety attack, yeah, this is where we lost the rhythm of our body, we lost certain oxygen in our mind, in our brain, sorry, and then that's how we keep on gasping for air. And when we do that, it affects us and we will end up having physical issues like gastrointestinal issues, we have our bowel issues, we will then have sleeping issues, and then we will then probably will faint at certain time that we do not realize. Yeah, so this is really important to take note. And lastly, it is to practice gratitude. Some people say, how can gratitude be practiced? It is important because right now we don't really appreciate our lives, don't really appreciate simple things. So we need to really come to a point where we can practice it. Yeah. There's this phrase that says that contentment is peace. Yeah. So when we practice gratitude, that's where contentment comes in. So in this season where we are so anxious, we probably going at work, it is frustrating. Yeah. Take a pause and remember to have this sense of gratitude, right? When we are filled with contentment, we are at peace. Begin and end the day with a grateful heart. Yeah. So that sums up the C.A.R.E framework. Now I hope that everyone will be able to adopt this and adapt this to our daily life to build a more mental and emotional resiliency in this unprecedented season. Okay, yeah.
Thank you for sharing that, Elaine. I really echo what your last statement about being gratitude, having gratitude. My business coach starts the conversation with us when we have sessions, and he always asks us to, you need to think about what to be grateful about every single day at the start of your day, from the time you wake up, when you start your day, because gratefulness or gratitude is one of the highest way of achieving high energy in your life. Because when you are looking at being grateful all the time, it brings up, is the fastest way to increase energy in our life. So that's one of the things I resonate. Elaine, if what happens, this is a quick question for you, what happens when we are in the anxiety or the stress level, when we don't care for ourselves? What are the possible outcomes that could happen during that, if that happens?
Yeah, like I've said earlier on, when we are driven very in very high and anxious mode, like it cripple us. Like when we say anxiety is basically feeling worry towards the future. So it gives us our sense of our bodily sense. It will give us the signal. Like I've said, when we are driven in an old car that is driving in 140 kilometer per hour, just imagine how it is going to be. Yeah, it will break down. Yeah. So when we are in this situation, the signal that often sends to our body is that we will have migraine. Yeah, because anxiety is where our mind will keep on telling, our mind will be always in this fight or flight mode. Imagine you are always constantly in a fight or flight. Yeah.
Yep.
So when you are in this, your body is tense, and your mind with all the neurotransmitter that is lacking, and it could be all over the place. And that's where we are clouded with a lot of certain thoughts that is not helping us positively or healthily. Yeah. So a lot of our the signs would be also affecting our diet. Yeah, we're not able to have appetite. Yeah, and we're not able to eat regularly, and lack of sleep, and you probably would be not able to concentrate. Yeah, because our heart is often pumping at very high speed. Yeah.
So if this keep prolonging
Yes.
for a certain period of time, this prolong and prolong, does it potentially lead to mental illness?
It will lead to certain physical illness, and it could be also mental illness is also one thing that whereby it could be genetic, it could be external stimuli, it could be something that prolong. So there are many aspects to look at that, but it would definitely, if our body and mind runs in that, has been running in that high speed, yeah, we definitely will have certain form of breakdown. Yeah, it could be a mental breakdown. It could be going into depressive symptoms. Yeah, because stress, anxiety, and depression is often linked. Yeah, anxiety and depression are like twins, fraternal twins.
Yep.
Okay, so if we go on like that, that's where our mind and our emotions will go into the a mood disorder. Yeah, that's where our feelings will be low, and it could be a bipolar, and so on. So always remember, stress, high stress, yeah, will then lead to us feeling anxious. Yeah, and then with that, it probably will lead us to more depressive symptoms.
So if we don't seek help, or if we don't have self-care,
Yes.
it's like the engine keeps running on without changing the parts, without
Yeah.
changing oil, and then eventually one day it will just snap, right? And depending on what it snapped to become, right?
Yeah, that's
Cool.
right, that's right.
Thank you for sharing that. Just
So,
thought that
yeah.
would be good for the audience to understand why self-care is so critical, and that care
Mm,
model that you just prescribe or just suggest to us probably is something that is very relevant and applicable to all of us in this audience. Now, for the rest of the audience here, if you have any questions or ahas, please share it in the chat box, and we will definitely get either Wendy or Elaine to kind of answer those questions. Now I'm going to go into this question. Maybe we'll take turns for both of you all to answer. And my first question is this: it sounds a lot to me in your sharing, both of you sharing today, that in order for us to kind of know where we are, that self-awareness is very critical. Would you agree that self-awareness is very critical? What are some of the ways that we could learn to be more self-aware? What exercise, what questions do we ask ourselves? How do we pause and really ask ourselves, what are we feeling? How are we feeling? Why is it like that? Could you all give some examples? Maybe Wendy, you want to start us off first with that self-awareness. Yeah, go ahead, Wendy.
Okay, okay. The first thing you need to know is our body sensation is the first indicator. So, for example, if you feel like your heart is pumping very quickly, or you are feeling like as if very uncomfortable or restless, that's one indication. And then what you need to do is you need to stop. Okay, take some time to sit down and then start to feel what you're feeling. Start to be sensitive to that feeling. So ask yourself, what am I feeling now? That's the first question. What am I feeling now? So the feeling could be, I'm feeling nothing. What is this nothing? How does this nothing feel like? It feels very dull. Okay, so I feel dull. So what is this dull feeling look like? I feel. So when you are starting to ask yourself questions, you begin to be more sensitive to your emotion. Then probably I'm feeling nothing, I'm feeling dull, I'm feeling a bit lonely. That's where the emotions comes in. That's when you start feeling. Now, once you identify that feeling, which is lonely, the second question you then go to your cognitive, which is your mind. What is driving that emotion, which is loneliness? What is making you feel lonely? Never ask why, because why is a very defensive question. Why am I lonely? Always ask, what is making me feeling lonely? How is this lonely feeling make me believe about myself? Where is this lonely feeling coming from? You know? Okay, so you ask that kind of question. So that's when you know what are the thoughts that's running behind that emotion.
Yep.
The next one, let's say if I say I'm feeling lonely because I do not have anybody to talk to. I feel like I do not have anybody to talk to. Okay, then that's where I always tell my clients to challenge that thought. Is that even a real thought? Or is that just a passing thought? Because our mind will want us to think negatively when it comes. So you always challenge that thought. I feel that I don't have friends. Is that true? Do I really don't have friends? Let me name one or two friends that I just spoke to yesterday. You know? So something like that. So in a way, you always challenge that thought to see whether if that thought is even a real thought or is just merely a passing thought. Yeah.
Thank you for sharing that, Wendy. Anything for you to add, Elaine, about self-awareness, which I think is very critical? What do you have to add about self-awareness?
well, self-awareness is something that it is not really inbuilt in us. We have to go through a process of really being aware of my thoughts, my feelings, and my actions. Yeah, so that's why having sounding board like going for seeking counselor help or having someone whom you can trust is really good to reflect upon myself. So if let's say, for example, if I am in this situation right now, I sometimes wouldn't be able to see myself and to see my behavior until if I'm able to have a sounding board to reflect to me. Yeah. So that's why there many instances that when clients come for counseling, that's where we focus on, hey, learn about being aware of myself, yeah, basically of my strengths, my thoughts, my emotions, and my actions. So this is like how we actually check in with one another. So I'm also helping all of us to understand that counseling is not like when I'm really in deep trouble, then only I go. It's really not. It's just like how when I need a physical instructor for my health, yeah, I go and see a physical instructor and to help me to work out better. So it's the same thing for mental health. If there are certain things I need to learn about myself, it's really hard to go through the process of it by myself. So that's where I seek help from a counselor or from someone who seemingly understands me and able to give a kind of listening ear to me. So that's when I say out, I hear my thoughts out. I hear my feelings out. Remember mindfulness, where you are able to listen, able to see, able to move our senses. That is also very important. Yeah.
Yep. So that sounds like using the C.A.R.E model, and that's connected, getting connection, having conversation with people, asking them to give you good feedback, and really tell me what you are hearing from me right now. Right, that's being connected. Right, that's part of self-care as well. Talking to people about situations that you are in, and not keeping it to yourself. Thank you for sharing that. We've got a question here on the chat box. It's a little bit long question, but I think it's a very good question. How do we identify that we are actually in high stress emotion? Because some people are putting it as a default mode to live in a high stress mode as part of their life. Hence, they may not be aware or may be denying this thought. It's a very interesting question. Maybe Wendy, you want to talk about that a little bit. You want to answer that question, and maybe come back to you, Elaine.
Okay, yeah. So I was also reading that question, and that was a very interesting question. My very first answer would be, first and foremost, you need to be very honest with your emotion. Like I said just now, because of our culture and because of our way of upbringing, our parents always tell us to avoid, to disregard, or to suppress whatever emotions we have. So stress is real. I mean, if you were to tell me that you cannot feel stress, I think, and then you tell me, I'm in a default mode, I cannot feel the stress, then why are you even having stress in the first place, right? So basically, I think it's very important for us and every one of us to be very honest with our emotion. If we are stressed, then say we are stressed. What is a default mode? I find it interesting because I'm always very expressive. Whenever I feel something, I just express. So default mode meaning you present.
I think it's kind of like when I go into this conversation, or when I start my work, I put on my work clothes. I'm in high stress mode. I put myself, like, I make sure that all my meetings are back to back. It's very intense, and that's my default mode. And maybe I may not be aware of it. So how do I get awareness that actually something is not right? Because you cannot be always intense all the time. Right. So I think that's probably the angle of that question.
So if you are stressed and then you put on your clothes, you put on your working clothes and you go to work, but at the back of your head you know you're stressed, I think our physical will have told us, right? We will feel the tightness at the back of our head. You will feel like easily agitated with people asking you questions, or when you're working you don't want people to distract you.
Correct.
I think our physical will exhibit the stress.
Yep.
And without us realizing it, it's about realizing that you're actually exhibiting the stress. You snap at people around you.
Correct.
You're forgetful. So, and also it's not because perhaps they're not aware, because one way of avoiding stress, thinking that you're stressed, is not to think about it. It's there, but you just don't think about it. And you not think about it, you think it's not there. You know what I mean?
Yep. So the question then is, how can we bring them to awareness? Because I think people around, this is probably someone who saw someone in that mode and is trying to bring awareness to this person who is going through that journey, that stressful default, right? So how do we bring awareness to another person that is not ourselves? Right.
I think the one way is to, like what Elaine has said, to show compassion to the person. And I always believe in being very honest. It's just to ask, hey friend, are you okay? Do you feel stressed? Just ask. rather than we go around the world and ask, oh, are you this, are you that? But basically, the point you're asking is, "Hey, my friend, I think you look like you are really overwhelmed with so much work. Are you stressed? Do you need help? How can I help you?" You know, a lot of times people want to help you with the way they think how you need to be helped. But the best question to ask the person is, how can I help you? And let the person tell you what kind of help they need. Be very frank and be very open and just ask the question, my friend, are you stressed with work? Is there anything that we can help you or support you with? I think that is all it is. Yeah.
Elaine, anything for you to add on your side?
Okay, understanding stress is really important. Yeah, stress itself. Everywhere we go, there is stress. Yeah, stress itself is something to motivate us. But there is eustress. That's where we are at the peak and we're at the optimum. That's where we perform the best. Yeah. So when we are in high stress level, that's where our performance will go down. Yeah. Our performance go down. Lack of concentration, lack of focus, lack of attention, and there are signs that will tell you that my hand starts to shiver. Okay. So when we have these symptoms, yeah, that's where you need to really consider to pause and to either you go and seek help, and then either you talk about it, yeah, with your spouse or with someone that you trust to talk about it. So the idea is really get out from me, get it out, yeah, get it out.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
Right.
Thank you for sharing, guys. I think that one thing that I could suggest as well, bring them on this call, get them connected in the conversation like this, be part of this platform, because that's where they will have more awareness as it's being spoken, not directly but indirect. Sometimes that could trigger certain things in my mind. Correct, right? Correct me if I'm wrong. That could trigger some things in my mind that I say, maybe, hey, I could have an aha moment. Maybe that's how I treated people this way, right? So that could be one of them. So very good questions here. How do we identify what would you do if you know someone is not mentally well and will potentially need help, but that someone doesn't realize it? What would you do? Elaine, what would you do?
What would I do is
If you know someone that's not mentally well and will potentially need help, but that person doesn't realize it, what would you do? What would you suggest for us? Yeah.
Right. Oftentimes I get this question. Yeah, first of all, put myself in a situation. Who am I to this person? When I am in this position of being, of help to a person, identifying that this person needs help, am I a person who has been building the trust with this person? Trust is really important. So right now, as where we are right now, are we still in the fear zone that crippled us, or have we moved to a learning zone? Yeah, or where this is the zone where we are at to respond and to help people. So it's time for us to think about, hey, what do I position myself first? Do I build trust with the person that I'm concerned with? Yeah. So if yes, that's where you are able to bridge the help there. Okay.
Yeah. So build the trust first, because sometimes we get very prescriptive just like that.
Yeah.
And that's when it just hits a wall and it just comes back, right?
Yeah.
How about you, Wendy? What would you do? What would you advise us to do if you know that the same question?
Actually, I have a question myself. Is that how do you know the person is mentally unwell? How do you know? Because mental health is, if the person is mentally unwell, it's not very obvious unless and until you have schizo or the person is bipolar, which is very obvious. Until then, how do you know the person is mentally unwell? So if you say the person is mentally unwell, basically it's mainly your judgment of that person.
Yep.
Yes?
Yep.
So I will think that if you think the person is mentally unwell, first stop that thought, and second, be the friend. Just be the friend and talk to the person. Find out more first, and then even suggest, hey, do you need help? Do you need anyone to talk to you? Do you think I think of someone who probably can help you? Do you think you need would you like to try to talk to a person? Yeah, rather than believing the person is mentally unwell.
Okay, thank you for that's a very good point. That's a very, very good point. Because sometimes we may get it wrong. Right, thank you. This is another good question. How do we identify people who are suffering from depression? Because I always hear people are depressed, do not show any symptoms, and that depression will be that the depressed will suddenly commit suicide. People who are depressed will suddenly commit suicide. How do we identify people who are suffering from depression? Elaine, do you want to take that question?
When someone who's been diagnosed with depression, it has to be from a certain period of time that shows the low mood. Depression is a mood disorder, basically feeling down, feeling unmotivated, unable to sleep, unable to eat, and there's certain times that it probably will be sleeping too much or not sleeping at all. Yeah, so these are the symptoms. So recognize these symptoms, and it has to be displayed across a period of time. Yeah, so if today I feel depressed and then tomorrow I'm not, this is not depression. Yeah, a lot of people have misused or abused this word depression. Yeah, so in a clinical way, it has to be observed in a period of time. Yeah, so to the point of committing suicide, yes, if the person do stay in this mode for the longest time, yeah, and not seeking help, and also to a point where there are suicidal thoughts. So if the person is showing these signs of suicidal thoughts or maybe certain ideation that self-harm or self-harming behavior. Self-harming behavior may not be physical. Self-harming also can be thoughts, can be mental. Yeah, so you can actually be able to see when the person is towards this continuum is where the behavior will definitely tell you the signs, the eye contact, the pupils, there is minimal eye contact, is unable to focus, paying attention when I talk to the person. So this is a really high risk condition. Yeah. So often we need, as perhaps maybe if we are able to be more sensitive, rather to our friends who seemingly withdraw themselves, self-withdrawal. Yeah. So for those who are in this mode, their low mode, if for a long time, they will withdraw. So we talk about self-isolation. This is self-isolation. It's not social distancing. Yeah. So in a long period of time. So be mindful of when we say that I'm depressed today. Okay. So is it just today? So that means you're having a bad mood.
Correct. So we're all not depressed. We're just social distancing. So don't misunderstood that word. And I truly fully agree with you, because as you mentioned in the beginning of that answering of that question is depression has to be diagnosed. Right? You've got to go and get help, bring them and get help, seek professional help to get it diagnosed. Don't be that. Don't just think that is depression. You can suspect, right? But bring it for diagnostic, from diagnosis. How about you, Wendy? What would you want to add something to that?
Yeah, so I agree with Elaine that to say that you have depression, I will highly recommend. So when someone tells me or my parent tells me that I'm depressed, the first question I will ask is, are you properly diagnosed? If she say no, then I won't take that as a diagnosis. I won't take that she's depressed. My second thing is, also with Elaine, I'm on board with her, is that the word depression is overly used. We don't say I'm sad, I'm just depressed. Somehow it sounds more dramatic, it sounds more heavy, and it sometimes gets the attention more. Depressed. But depressed, it has to be maybe a duration of 2 weeks or more of similar symptoms, whereby you see the person sleeping all the time, isolating himself or herself from people, crying for no apparent reason, and always feeling low and down all the time. So that is the difference between extreme sadness and depression. So a lot of times, sometimes my children tells me, "Mommy, I'm depressed." I say, "Oh, tell me more about this depression. How does it feel like? What does it make you think about this depression?" But then I correct them, saying, "I think what you're feeling perhaps is this intense sadness." But then this having said, because I'm a counselor, I can tell them that
Got it.
Don't brush them off saying, "No, you're not depressed."
Right. Don't deny their feeling, don't deny their
Yes.
thoughts, because
Yes.
that's still their right and they are empowered to think like that. But
Yes.
the best thing is to bring them to someone and get them properly diagnosed, right?
Yes.
So that's a
Always
very
get a proper diagnosis.
yes,
The proper and confirmed diagnosis before you tell the person says I am depressed.
right.
Because from my experience, a lot of people they don't mind being labeled to a um, thing, a certain title, like for example depression. Or I know this boy who call him. He says he is autistic. You know, then because of that, then it gives him the freedom to behave autistic. We have a symptom of autistic child, so
Yep.
he can behave certain ways, like he behaves badly. He was very destructive, and he's telling people, oh, because I'm autistic. So labeling allows him to behave that way.
Yep. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing that.
One more thing about depression, we often would ask how long is it? Yeah. So depression, at least for clinical depression to be diagnosed, is basically a duration at least 2 weeks. Yeah, with certain symptoms that have been displayed. Yeah. So we often will ask how long is this? If let's say the person said that it was just a few days ago, okay, never mind. Let's monitor again and see how it goes.
Okay. There are a lot of questions coming in, but because of time, I don't think we can answer a lot of this question. I'm going to take one or two more depending on how long we answer. But I thought this one question or maybe it's an observation and aha. The first impression that when we want to seek help professionally, there is something called high cost. That becomes a hurdle for us. Like counseling is high cost. This is what I think this is a observation. Talking to family may not work, as sometimes we are being judged by family or friends. What do you have? What both of you have comment about counseling being high cost or professional help is being high cost? Maybe Elaine, you start with that first. What do you think about that?
Yes, there's often cost incur when counselors nowadays we really need to recognize our counselors, the work that we do. Yeah, so definitely it is a profession, and of course, if it's a private rate, it could be can be a bit hefty. That's why everybody came forth, yeah, to provide affordability and sustainability for those who are not able to afford. Yeah, so it is a community mental health service. So look out for NGOs that provide mental health care. Yeah, so it makes it affordable. At the same time, we also recognize that it is a professional work and ethics. Yeah.
Yep. How about you, Wendy? What do you want to comment on that?
I think Elaine says it all, but basically we have a rename that is our intention or objective is to reach out to the community lah. So if any one of you or your friends who need support, you can always come. I think we will have the link, right, of the arena at a later date, a later part of this talk. You can catch hold of that link and then you can reach out to us. And then what we do is we will reach out to you as well. And because we have a broad network of other counselors who are also able to help out, so we will be able to work together with other counselors
Okay.
to support you.
Okay. Thank you for sharing. Maybe Elaine, I thought taking this opportunity for you to make the announcement to kind of share with people what are some of the things that the audience here could take advantage of, or to take action right now, for them to kind of seek help. Maybe you'll have the announcements out.
Yep. So for those who have tuned in today, you don't walk home or walk home. You don't tune off without anything. Okay, sorry. So basically, this is the steps for action for our mental health service, RNA counseling. Okay, these are the 3 steps. Yeah. First of all, for those who really want to know more, who also think that you want to do certain exercise to have increase my self-awareness, whether I'm stressed, high anxiety, or whatsoever, scan the QR code that is there, or insert the link below into your browser, and it will lead you to our website of RNA Counseling Services. Secondly, there is a self-assessment on depression, anxiety, and stress test Don't worry, this is not SPM or professional test. It's just a self test that you can administer to yourself, and it's very straightforward. Okay, so when you have done the test, and if you feel that, hey, there's a concern about myself, I would like to know more, then there's an inquiry form there. You fill out your details and you will reach to us, and then we will then reach out to you and will arrange a time for you to have a 30-minute free consultation. Yeah, free consultation. Yeah. So remember to do this. If you think that, hey, your friend seemingly express certain interest or anything that you feel that you care for this friend, okay, just go through these 3 steps with your friend. Yeah, scan the QR, go to the link, or go to the link and do the assessment itself.
Okay, awesome. I'm going to leave that page here for a while for some of you to just take the scan and kind of copy that link. And before I pass the time back to Eugene to kind of close us and wrap us up, any last thoughts that you want to share with the audience here today? Maybe I start with you, Wendy, first. Any last thoughts for the audience here today? You are muted.
Right, can you hear me now?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, so I just want to, I saw a question that I thought was very important. I just want to answer that question about like how do you help a friend, or what do you say or do you not say to a person who wants to commit suicide?
Yep.
Okay, so that one I think is important for me to just share.
Sure.
So if anyone ever come to you and says, oh, I want to commit suicide, it's very important to ask 3 questions. These 3 questions. First question, do you have a plan? No, not plan. So the first question is, so you want to, so you confirm it, so now you have a thought that you want to commit suicide, then the person will say, yeah, I want to, or no. 2 is that, do you have a plan how you want to do it? Alright? And the third question is, you asked, can you share with me when, do you have a specific time or date, or where do you want to do this? Now, it sounds really odd to be asking this kind of question. It sounds very insensitive to ask this question. But the point is, right, if the person say, oh, no, I have no plans about it, it's just in my mind. So basically, it's a passing thought. Because sometimes we think, oh, I just want to die, and then it's a passing thought, but we never thought of doing it. But sometimes some people, who has a thought of wanting to commit suicide, they will have a more thorough plan how they want to do it, how they want to die, and they will have a specific idea where they want to do it, when they want to do it. Some say, I want to do it on my birthday, things like that. So this is when you start taking note, and then you need to inform someone, a relative close to the person, because the aim is to keep the person safe. Yeah. So you need to tell the family of the person, or you get someone whom, like maybe the pastor of the church, someone to help. It's not because you are intruding in his life, but you are trying. Basically, what you're doing is you're saving the person's life. Yeah.
Yep.
So that's it. And I want to end by saying this. I wish sometimes mental health can, what mental health really need is more sunlight, more candor, and more unchained conversation among people. It's nothing to be ashamed of. Mental health is really asking you, how is your mind today? It's not a labeling part, it's not judging, it's basically just asking, how are you today mentally? Yeah.
Thank you for sharing, Wendy. How about you, Elaine? Any last thoughts for us?
Okay, so we are coming back to mental health. In WHO actually came out with 1 in 4 will be affected by some form of mental health or neurological disorder. So 1 in 4, yeah. So there are how many of us? Remember, mental health is like our physical health. So 2/3 of people who are known with mental disorder, and they never seek help. They end up never seeking help due to stigma, due to discrimination. So now the question to ask yourself is that mental health is important. Mental health is also my well-being. Yeah, so don't take lightly of my mental health, and be sensitive to the people that we love. Yeah, and so that we are being the instrument to them. Yeah. sometimes may not really go to the extent of seeking professional help, but our role, our position, building the trust actually will help a lot. Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you guys for really taking your time to add value to us and just help us to understand mental health a little bit more. I'm going to pass the time right now to Eugene to kind of wrap us up and make some announcements. Eugene, take us away.
Thank you, John. Thank you, Elaine. Thank you, Wendy. I think both of your closing statement really resonated with me because when the MCO started, I think I was also struggling to adapt to the new way of life. I felt not productive enough, felt wasn't progressing in life. And I did a session with a counselor. And in the session, the counselor told me, you must learn to celebrate your small wins each day. And I took that one insight and I immediately practiced it every single day. I would write down a list of things I want to do. I would check by the end of the day whether I completed it. And I took that advice and share it with the people that I'm leading, that I'm working with. And that one insight made a lot of difference in my life and the life of the people around me. So I want to say whatever you heard today, whether it can be just a passing thought or whether it can be life-changing, the decision is really up to us. So we again want to thank Elaine and Wendy for their time and let us appreciate them by applying whatever they've taught. And today is really a special day because it kind of ends a chapter for this shift that we have been doing. 6 to 7 weeks ago, John and I came together and we thought, why not let's do something for the young adult generation. Of course, none of us know much. We don't exactly know what the crowd wants. And we thought, it's okay, we just try. And John said, let's just do this called Shift. So we pulled the team together, we found the speakers, and every week is learning for us. And it has been 6 weeks that we have been doing it. And I remember all the learnings from every speaker. I remember every feedback that every one of you have been giving, and we appreciate and learn from every one of those. I remember the 200 new contacts that I have in my phone and the different friends that I've been making among you. And I just want to appreciate you that as we bring this chapter to a close, we hope it has been valuable and fruitful to all of you. So what will our next chapter be like? We will no longer be doing weekly shift sessions as the MCO has opened up, life's going back to normal. What we will be doing is this. John has willingly started 2 smaller groups. One, we call it a mastermind. It's a peer-to-peer learning platform. One for entrepreneurs, one for the workforce. And we will limit it to 15 to 20 people so we can have personal engagement with them. But every 4th week of the month, we will again do a conference like that with much improvement from whatever we have learned from these 6 weeks to continue to bring value and to bless this community. So we want to invite all of you, if you are an employee, join the Workforce Mastermind. If you're an entrepreneur, join the Entrepreneur Mastermind. And for all of you, please join us for June 27, we have Casey Lee. Casey is one of my favorite speakers. No joke, I'm not hard selling. He's really good. Please join us and he will be talking to us about disruption. So see you in the masterminds. See you in the conference. Thank you for joining us today.